In the program, Kazakhstan International Vectors, International Relations, Political Views, Economic Solutions and Social Innovations. Further, you will find out how the Assembly of People of Kazakhstan has been created, what languages do the inhabitants of a great country speak, and how do the regular Kazakhstanis help to maintain the unique national traditions. Thanks to an agreement, the smaller countries grow. Because of the discord, the greatest countries die. Henryk Sienkiewicz, Polish writer. Holidays in Kazakhstan are being widely celebrated, including the religious ones. And if for Muslims the most important day of the year is Kurban Eid, the Germans in Kazakhstan have two major holidays, Easter and Christmas Day. There are some traditional dishes. For Christmas it is Weihnachtsgang, Christmas goose. In some areas people make the carved fish for Christmas, bake Lebkuchen, bake gingerbread cakes and so on. Be sure to dress up a Christmas tree and decorate the top with a Bethlehem Christmas star. It should be done in any case. People exchange gifts, tell each other good wishes both to the world and to the family. Germans usually get ready for Christmas celebrations 4 weeks ahead. Catholics call this period an Advent. During the Advent, Germans decorate trees and houses with lights and toys. The holiday itself, Germans decided to celebrate with their families. But for the younger generation, the German Center has made an exception and organized a Merry Christmas tree. Here there are kids who are engaged with us in our language clubs, kids who attend our preschool child center Wunderkind. Apart from that, here there are kids from societies of our regions, the city of Talgar, Issyk and Kaskelen. For all residents of the former Soviet Union, including for Kazakhstanis, the celebration of Christmas is inextricably linked to the New Year celebration. Traditionally, of course, Christmas smells with almonds, cinnamon, and also there is a smell of mandarins, just the same way as for the New Year in the former Soviet Union countries. Still for Germans, Christmas smells with mandarins too. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Each republic had to choose its own path of development. Interethnic issues have risen sharply in many parts of the former Soviet Union. In Nagorno-Karabakh, Transnistria, Georgia, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, these spilled over into armed conflicts. Fortunately, in multinational Kazakhstan, it did not come to it, through peace and harmony policy pursued in the state. More acute in the early 90s, there was another problem: emigration. In those years, the first years of independence, Kazakhstan was losing one city in a year when people began emigrating from the country to various other countries. And at the moment, it was inevitably necessary to take urgent measures, unconventional steps to calm people down, and especially in the interethnic relations. And this was a unique step of the leader of the nation when he offered in 1992, when he expressed the idea that it is necessary to create an institution that will regulate interethnic relations. It was the Assembly of Peoples of Kazakhstan. The uniqueness of this body is that it was created by the people's will. The initiative came from the ethnic groups themselves, who united in their own national cultural centers. Thus, the creation of a new, unique structure began with small assemblies in the regions. On February the 16th, 1995, President Nursultan Nazarbayev met with the heads of national cultural centers. At the meeting, he said that to maintain and further strengthen interethnic harmony in the country, there is a need to create a new public institution, the Assembly of Consent and Unity of the Peoples of Kazakhstan, as a consultative and advisory body to the President. The Assembly of Peoples of Kazakhstan, the original name, was established at the initiative of President Nazarbayev on March 1st in 1995. The first session, with the participation of 260 delegates from 40 cultural centers, was held on March 24, 1995. It was renamed as the Assembly of People of Kazakhstan in 2007. As soon as the assembly was established, people immediately calmed down and emigration has declined. Among the main goals to be achieved has been identified a spiritual revival and development of all ethnic groups in Kazakhstan, the formation of culture of international relations based on civilized democratic principles, on respect for the interests of the various peoples in the state national policy. The priority had to become to find political compromises in the resolution of emerging contradictions and problems, careful examination of legislation projects affecting national interest. Changes were made in 2007 to the Constitution. The Assembly has acquired the status of a constitutional body. From the part of the Assembly, 9 deputies of the Majlis of the Parliament were to be elected. More senators in the upper house started to be appointed, also taking into account the ethnic and cultural interests. The permanent president of the Assembly of People of Kazakhstan is the president of the country himself. This is important for the proper work of a real mechanism for the protection of interests of all without exception the ethnic groups living in the country. For what countries the Assembly of People of Kazakhstan has become an example to follow? In which way the Assembly parties take common decisions. Today, more than 120 nationalities are living in Kazakhstan, and the main task for each of them is to save their own culture and defend their interests. In this, a unique body, the Assembly of People of Kazakhstan, assists them. Assembly is just the first institute of harmonization of interethnic relations in general, and a lot has been made, both by the state and civil society. Take any sphere, take the scope of the state language. In any ethno-cultural association there is a teacher who receives a salary from the state to study the state language, to study the native language of a particular ethno-cultural association. Language courses for children and adults are offered by almost every ethnic and cultural association in Kazakhstan. Many of them have their own specifics. For example, language courses in the Union of Germans of Kazakhstan are taught by the sample situations from everyday people's life in Germany. At that, students learn at the same time the culture of their historic homeland. Koreans of Kazakhstan consider the newspaper Kore Ilbo one of the 2 historical values. This newspaper is continuously published in 2 languages, Russian and Korean, for 90 years and was brought to the country by Korean settlers almost 80 years ago. Newspapers' historical value is very important for us. Korean language. South Korea allows us to save the language, but it certainly is not the language spoken by our grandparents. That is, it is the language of modern Korea. It is slightly different dialect, but there are a few carriers of what is called Korema. It tends to be the language of immigrants, that is, when the Koreans moved precisely from Korea to the Far East and then they were transported to Central Asia. Another subject of the historical pride of Kazakhstani Koreans is their national theater. In 2016 it opened its 85th season. It is the theater which was founded in the Far East until the resettlement of Koreans in Central Asia. That is, this theater is a legacy of our generation, because thanks to its existence, we do not forget our traditions, dances, songs that were popular back in the 30s of the 20th century. German and Uyghur national theaters also function in Kazakhstan, but not only professional actors help to preserve traditions, but also ordinary people of Kazakhstan. At ethnic and cultural centers, a variety of associations function, so to speak, hobby groups. On the basis of the German house, we created a group called Basteln. To Russian language, it can be translated as needlework. This group takes about 15 people, mostly older people. We are mastering various crafts. You can see here, everything was done by the hands of participants of this group. Due to this workshop group also, it is possible to retain a traditional German costume, traditional embroideries. Traditional costumes, both male and female costume suits and traditional embroidery also. For example, here this bag has come to us through the project link between generations. That is, this handbag is for over 60 years old. This embroidery was made in the youth of one of our seniors, so to speak. The history of German costumes is a big topic, because in different states of Germany there are their own traditional rites and therefore their costumes. So in this case, Swabian land suits are represented. At every center, there are also associations that help to preserve songs and dance heritage of the ethnic group. According to the recent data, the population of Kazakhstan equals to 17,693,500 people. Of these, 63% are Kazakhs, 23.7% are Russians, 2.9% are Uzbeks, and 2% are Ukrainians. 1.4% are Uyghurs, 1.3% are Tatars, 1.1% the Germans, and 4.5% other nationalities. Kazakh hospitality is well known to all the countries of the former USSR, and this proves that the Assembly of People of Kazakhstan helps not only the preservation of unique traditions, but also the formation of new ones. Assembly of People of Kazakhstan is all of us, 17 million Kazakhstanis. That is, the institution is really the under-political national institution, so today there are very big problems. For example, today we are advising the public consent of the Assembly of People of Kazakhstan to reach every person in the assembly, in towns and regions, to have the consent of the council. Upon the initiative of the Assembly of People of Kazakhstan, a law on mediation was adopted. The mediation is developing today, that is, the under-judicial conciliation of argues. The Assembly also oversees charitable work, the provision of targeted assistance to socially vulnerable groups. But its main task is all the same: to preserve peace and harmony in the country, to preserve interethnic and interconfessional tolerance. Once a year, an Assembly session passes, where everyone present could speak about ethnic problems that exist. This is just a pledge. This is agreement and the strength of our interethnic relations. If the slightest issue will not find the exit, it will accumulate in a critical point, critical mass, and this can then result in what is called radical forms. Therefore, everything is done to ensure that national interests are met in a civilized manner and in a full volume. Experts explain the preservation of interethnic harmony in Kazakhstan by the result of many years of hard work. The success of the Assembly of People of Kazakhstan is under attention around the world. Our model of interethnic harmony has been presented in the UN, and the UN Secretary-General at the time, Kofi Annan, called the Assembly of People of Kazakhstan a mini-UN. It was presented to the OSCE, that is, when Kazakhstan was preparing to chair the OSCE. It first presented this model because it was one of the strong points why our country chaired the OSCE. This is a very fruitful, the real policy of interethnic, interconfessional accord. Roman Pope John Paul II also highly praised the Kazakhstan's idea, like some other public figures. This unique experience is seeking to take over some other countries, especially countries of the CIS. Dozens of delegations come first and foremost ask this one question: how to get acquainted with this model, because we do in fact have a state of multi-polyethnic policy. We have more than 130 nations, but the absence of conflicts is the real result of the fruitfulness of this policy, not only in words but in fact case. Even on this subject we have held lectures at Moscow State University. We were asked by MSU representatives to read lectures on interethnic tolerance, and there was a big interest. Assembly of People of Kazakhstan, it is Kazakhstan itself and the people who inhabit it. Today the majority of nationalities are represented in the government, various ministries and departments of the country. Assembly may also be called a living bridge between Kazakhstan and other countries. Ethno-cultural associations help to establish necessary connections. At an example of our ethno-cultural association, I can say that we are now through this bridge between Kazakhstan and Korea, which we ourselves are building constantly. We are now forming a huge big business forum within the framework of the Expo 2017 in Astana, in order to attract large number of Korean, South Korean companies, and not only South Korean, but the Koreans from around the world who are interested in the development of its business in the Central Asia. Ethno-cultural centers are constantly carrying out the social work. They bring people together on a professional basis, engage in the development of children, and implement projects aimed at the older generation. Deutsche Social Fund is an organization that provides charitable assistance, conducts charity events. This year, Deutsche Social Fund participated in the Fair of Social Ideas of Projects, which was conducted by the foundation of the first president of Kazakhstan. The project which we have prepared is called 1+1, One Together Through Life. It is aimed at creating the conditions and the establishment of areas for joint activities of children, together with the Children's Home No. 1 in Almaty and the Elderly Veterans Home also in Almaty. For older people who are also in such conditions when there is no close relatives of young people, children, grandchildren, for them communication with children brings many emotional experiences, and they are willing to share their life with them. Every time they prepare gifts in meetings with these children to communicate, share their impressions. Children, it is mostly children from the first grade students of the first classes. They hold a talk what their success in school is, that is, the exchange of these very experiences and emotions. This is the main problem that we solve. And we hope that with the completion of the project, the friendship between the men and children will not end. And now such conditional couples are formed. Adults want to accompany these kids, and up to the 10th grade and beyond, as long as possible.